You spent 10 minutes on the set with James Franklin the other day. What were your impressions of him, that moment, him coming up there? I thought that was, that was obviously, until the chaos of Saturday unfolded, one of the buzziest moments of the weekend. What was your impression of spending some time with James?
I thought that he was humble. It was one of the things he wanted to do because he is proud of what he accomplished, and he was very concerned prior to the interview about how that would be perceived. I thought he handled himself well. He faced the questions. He told the story about how it happened. And then at the end, I went back and said, well, basically, I don't remember exactly how I phrased it, but the record against top 10 opponents was cited as the reason for your dismissal. How will you approach that differently in the future? He knew, he's talked about that in the past. So I don't think it was any kind of surprise to him, that was brought up. But I thought he came off as confident, humbled a little bit, and still a little bit rattled, just to be honest about it. I think he's telling the truth despite all the noise and the chants. And, there's a story that at a hockey game, after the loss to Oregon, that they gave up a goal and they started chanting "Fire Franklin," before it happened. I think despite all of that, I don't think he really thought it was going to happen. And so I still perceive that he was a little bit rattled. But, some of that will go away with time. But I thought he handled himself very well and very confidently.
Yeah, you could tell it was still raw. I spoke to him in the office for a couple minutes, and somebody just walked up to him and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And it was not a "Hey, I'm good. How are you?" Like when I walked into the coffee shop this morning to get it, and they were like, "Hey, how you doing?" It was like pause. There was a very human element there. Like this guy, and that goes it was. You could tell he had gotten sideswiped. Wasn't expecting it to happen.
And I should point out the one thing too, Pete, and I've said this here, and I should have said it on the show Saturday. All of us serve at the pleasure of our employers. And even though you can differ with Pat Kraft's decision or the Penn State Power Brokers or the decision that they came to collectively, you can differ with that if you choose to. But it's a lot like, in a lot of ways, I think one of you guys, maybe Dan, one of you brought up Mark Richt. A lot like that. Yeah, it's a lot like that. I mean, there have been a lot of good. There have been near great, and they want great. So it's hard. I don't fault them for doing it, but I do. It's a risk. But I thought, he didn't. I don't think he saw it coming at all. I thought he handled himself well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Dan, what did you think watching at home?
Yeah, I mean, I thought what I liked is he showed up and was like, "I'm ready to go." Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a good message. It's tough anytime you lose your job, and we all can joke and hey, look, you got tons of money and you're not financially set, but when you get tapped on the shoulder like that, it anytime you've been through layoffs and you see colleagues lose their job and this or that, and so I thought it was good for James. I think. I'm interested to see how this goes as the sport goes forward. Because in the past, there was a time like, well, that guy's failed. He's got to go do something else for a couple of years. And then maybe he gets a mid-major job. And it's kind of like the career's over. And I'm wondering in this era whether it's a little bit more like, the NBA is famous for just we're retreading, right? Like, hey, Doc Rivers got another job, right? There's a good coach. Doug Moe, Larry Brown, I think, coached 9 NBA teams. Yeah, Cotton. And he's like, hey, we need a coach. Cotton Fitzsimmons. He'll get you 52 wins. I don't know. I mean,
good side
how many jobs has Doc Rivers has had at least 6 jobs, right? Great coach, but then sometimes it's no longer you failed, you're a failure, you're the worst. It's ran its course. Right? Nobody, there's occasional Greg Popoviches, right? There's an occasional guy that stays forever. And then there's these other guys that are good, solid coaches, and you bring them in and maybe all the things align and you win the title, or maybe you don't. And maybe James Franklin's that guy. I think he's going to get a job because you're going to look around and say, who am I taking? And say, hey, this guy can run the program pretty well. And if we do this, maybe we can get, there's worse places to be than, I think Pete said it reasonably, like 7th best program in the country. That's not a bad spot. You may get frustrated eventually, but that's a good frustration. It's a lot better than we're being humiliated or we only won 2 games. So I think there's guys like that you'd say, Rece, you brought up Dan Mullen. Yeah, maybe you sit there and say, hey, look, okay, what was this? The rub on him at Florida was he wasn't that interested in recruiting at the maniacal levels that you need. And then maybe like Urban did, well, you don't have to recruit that way anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's different. And so, Deion Sanders puts together a team, and he hadn't been at one high school in like 3 years. He doesn't visit anyone.
I'm not hard to find.
That would have been. That would have been.
Find.
How? Yeah. I'm like, come on, you come visit me, right? Yeah. And now he's Deion, and that works, I guess. But I'd still like to see him visit a couple high schools, but that's all right. In the past, you'd say, what? Like, that's impossible. Well, it could be done. So maybe that's where James Franklin is. I think he gets a good job, and you don't know. He said, I'm going to win the title at the next place. Maybe you do.